All right, welcome back. It's good to have you guys here. It's 10 o'clock, so we'll get started with your class materials. Just to remind you quickly where we are currently, we are working on chapter 28, which is about the 1970s. This week we'll be taking a look at chapter 28, and the section that you'll be working with today is taking a look at a section from the textbook that we deal with using a video clip to kind of break down for you the steps of what happened with the Watergate scandal. We had a president, President Trump, get impeached just this past year, and he was impeached. The impeachment wasn't successful in removing the president, but the president was accused of crimes. He was accused in the House. He then held a trial. We held a trial in the Senate. And in our trial that we had recently, all the Republicans except for one voted to acquit the president. All the Democrats voted guilty in the impeachment trial. And as a result, President Trump was not removed from office, but he was accused of crimes committed while being president of the United States. And these crimes were referred to as being high crimes and misdemeanors. And that's tricky in the Constitution because when the Constitution was created, we assumed that the president would behave like George Washington, where ethically and morally they would be doing what they were supposed to, which is when they swear their oath, they swear that they're going to uphold and defend the Constitution, which means that they're upholding and defending the laws of the country. For you guys, then, what we'll be looking at today is I'm going to be assigning for you guys an ed puzzle that will allow you guys to take a look at what happened with the Watergate scandal. What was Richard Nixon accused of? And the weird thing about Richard Nixon's impeachment is when we take a look at his impeachment, he, first of all, is going to get impeached for actions that he took in the 1972 presidential election. So in 1968, he is going to barely win election over Hubert Humphrey. And part of the reason why is because in the South, you have Southerners who aren't sure if they're Republicans or Democrats anymore. Many of them want to maintain segregation and prevent civil rights from moving forward. For Richard Nixon, he, between 1968 and 1972, tried to convince them that they were on the Republican side. So if you take a look at the Republicans nowadays, the Deep South has now become very much Republican territory, a lot of which was done during the Richard Nixon presidency. Richard Nixon focused on the silent majority. He argued that protesters were out of control. He argued that he would end the war in Vietnam. And he's highly popular. As you can see in the 1972 election, he is going to win by one of our largest landslides ever in U.S. history. The thing that makes Watergate so tragic then is the fact that Richard Nixon felt the need to get engaged in dirty tricks to try to figure out ways to guarantee that he would win the election. Now, the reason why he's doing that is in the 1960 election, when he ran against John F. Kennedy, he barely lost. In the 1968 election, he barely won. He did not want to have that risk again, so he decided that he was going to try to do everything he could in order to win. And in some cases, he's doing things that are illegal. The things that he's doing, though, are not being done by him initially. He's encouraging people that he's working with to do illegal things to help him win the election. The thing that he's going to get in trouble for, and this is the same thing that Donald Trump was accused of this past year, is Richard Nixon was accused of trying to lie about what was happening in the White House. He was accused of destroying evidence and covering up a scandal that was taking place. And in 1974, the Congress told him, Republican and Democrat, that what he had done was dangerous for our country and that they were going to impeach him. So in 1974, Richard Nixon is our first and only president to ever quit being president midway through his second term. By that time, his vice president had already quit as well for his own scandal. So the president and vice president both quit. So what's super weird about the 1970s is Gerald Ford becomes president, and he never got elected president or vice president. He was a congressman who was chosen by the people in Congress to become the vice president right before Richard Nixon quit. So we wouldn't start working our way down the line of people who were eligible to become president. So what I'm going to want you to do is taking a look here today. Make sure, first of all, that you are filling out your attendance for today so that your attendance is taken care of. I'm going to want you to watch this Watergate Ed puzzle, and I'm going to take the link. Let me copy the link right here, and I'll put it into the chat function that you've got over here on the side. Make sure you watch this today so that you're able to then talk intelligently about this tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're going to start off by taking a look at comparisons between the Nixon impeachment and the Trump impeachment to kind of take a look at what parallels we were noticing over the past year. And then we'll take a look at the rest of chapter 28 tomorrow. The final thing I need to mention to you is this. I've got a number of people in this class who are engaging in academic dishonesty. They are doing plagiarism. And what that means is you've had as your requirements for the class ed puzzles and text questions largely, but I'm having kids turn in stuff that they're cutting and pasting from the internet. And what I need to warn you about is not only is that supposed to get a 0, but that's also supposed to lead to a referral to the principal. So while you guys are doing distance learning, it is with the assumption that you're doing your own work and not cheating to get your answers done. So what I'm going to want you to do, please, is make sure that you're reading the textbook the way you should, filling out the answers the way you should in your own words, rather than cutting corners. And I realize you're going through a tough time, and this is stressful to be away from your friends and be away from school. That doesn't then mean that I'm going to want you to do stuff that is undermining our ability to kind of understand the basics of what US history is supposed to be about. So if you have received a 0 for turning in stuff that is being copied and pasted, please reach out to me so we can talk about what we do about that. Please make sure you're also doing your own work. And if you're having any problems, let me know so I can help you out. So that's your assignment for today, the Ed puzzle. Have it done by tomorrow when we come back to class. We'll take a look at the Ford and the Carter presidencies tomorrow. So we'll be wrapping up the 1970s this week. Next week, we'll take a look at the 1980s, Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush. And this is history that most of your parents are going to be really familiar with. And so if you are having any problems or you have any questions, the next units, this one and the next one, are very much where our modern politics comes from. And it's the reason we want to make sure that we get this covered before we wrap up our class together. If you feel confident that you are good, again, make sure you fill out your attendance for today, but you now know what your assignment is, so you can drop off and get to work if you would like to. Let me know if I can help out in any way. Have a great day, guys.